Welcome back. The Trump administration's Environmental Protection Agency has walked away from the negotiating table with the state of California related to fuel efficiency standards. The action seems to guarantee a fierce fight and massive legal battle that could change the playing field and create major compliance headaches for vehicle manufacturers in the U.S. and around the world. Here to discuss is car coach Lauren Fix. Hey, Lauren, welcome back. We love having you, of course, all the time. This thing was already a mess. We talked about it a few months back, but I guess there was some hope it could have been resolved amicably, although perhaps that's too Pollyannish on my part. What do you make of all of it, Lauren?
I didn't think it was going to get resolved at the table. You have to remember, California thinks they can run the country because they had this special dispensation that they could make their own regulations for their own state. But remember, the rest of the 49 states now have to follow through if California makes the regulation, because car manufacturers want to make vehicles to one standard. So instead, I'm going to date myself. Do you remember they used to have New York emissions and California emissions, and everyone had their own emissions? Well, now California wants to call the shots for the whole country, and that's where the federal government is saying, well, wait a minute, that may have been fine then, but now we're going to change the corporate average fuel economy, known as CAFE standards, and you no longer get that special dispensation from the California Air Research Board, and wherever they get their data from, whether it's just for them. Only 17 states have agreed to follow suit. One of them newly added is Colorado. And unfortunately, it puts manufacturers in a tough position because they want to build vehicles for everybody. But if the one standard is higher in California and other states and the other ones aren't, it costs them more money to meet the standard. But overall, it's costing them more money, which is costing you more money when you go to buy a car, because some of those regulations won't apply in Kentucky or Montana. And so you have to remember that that's going to cost everybody money across the board.
You know, I just wonder, and this may be a stretch, and I know you're not a political analyst, but you're one of the smarter people we know here, that, you know, California is leading this group of 17 other states to take the Trump administration on with regard to those, that emergency designation last week on the border wall. I just wonder if, you know, after that, by the way, you may recall that the Trump administration sort of reneged and said they wanted some of their money back from the high-speed rail in California. So I just wonder if that was in the background when this was going on, that there wasn't sort of some edict from the top that came down and said, just call off the talks with California. You have any opinion on that?
Well, yeah, I don't believe that that's... I think what happened is there was some bad timing in the Green New Deal that was presented, which is a bag of really bad ideas, which I put in my 4-Minute Friday that I posted today. The goal is no more fossil fuels. Now, you think no more fossil fuels? Well, every bottle of water you touch, the clothing you touch, everything has fossil fuels in it. And a part of that was also high-speed rail and no more airplanes, which is 700,000 jobs and millions of jobs in the auto industry, just really not well thought out in the bigger picture. You know, you might want to be less responsible and less onto fossil fuels, but I think it just didn't make any sense. But part of that, at the same time, Gavin Newsom, who's the governor of California, said, we can't do high-speed rail. It's trillions of dollars from San Francisco to L.A., and we couldn't get it into L.A. It would have to be way outside of L.A., and they decided to bag the whole thing. But he had already taken money from the federal government for this high-speed rail project. So it just so happens that bad timing was corporate average fuel economy conversations were going on. The Green New Deal idea came out. At the same time, they realized the cost of doing it was completely unreasonable. And then they said, fine, so you wanted this money for this high-speed rail project? You're not going to do the high-speed rail project? We want our money back. And they don't want to give it back. Listen, if I borrowed money from you, Bart, and I said I was going to buy a car and I didn't buy the car, you'd want your money back. I mean, it's pretty simple. If you're not going to use it for those funds, then the money should go back to the federal government because it belongs to all of us here in the United States.
Absolutely.
Not just one state or
I knew you'd have a great answer to that. Hey, how about the rest of the world vis-a-vis efficiency standards, and you know, how do they do? And are there certain vehicle manufacturers that are better equipped to deal with higher standards than others, Lauren?
Well, I think all of them work together. I mean, obviously, the smaller companies will struggle more so than bigger companies. Like, all the Germans are on top of it because they've also worked with diesel, and they've had the diesel issues. And it's interesting, though, you look at Europe as a whole, and their goal is to try and be more green, have more electric vehicles. Like Paris said, they're going to be all green. Well, they're all running into the same problem we're running into here in the States. The government has to subsidize it. Consumers don't want it. There's not enough charging stations, and their grid can't support it. So when you start tying all this together, and the cost to do all this is well more than if you taxed everyone 100%, it doesn't make sense. So you're starting to see a backing off of some of the European manufacturers in their countries is saying, you know what, maybe we're not just going to push these green cars too far. Maybe we'll just make better fuel-efficient vehicles, or maybe combinations of gas and hybrid, or instead of the plug-ins, because if there's not enough places to plug in, then what?
Jeez, it's so interesting. The always informative and ever interesting Lauren Fix, the car coach. Thank you so much, Lauren.
Thanks, Bart.